Taku ti, taku ta, taku hiri ki te ao Ngāti Hei Māori.
Kia ora. Thank you. What a pleasure. It's been a few months, Brandon, since last time you were here?
I think it was the middle of the year last year.
Middle of the year
maybe.
last year. Thanks for coming back.
Cool. Thank you for calling. Thank you, Blue Ginger.
How was that food, Joe?
Oh man, that was you know, I'm a carnivore.
Yeah.
But I must say I enjoyed that. I really did. The sauces were superb. Hey, the you know, I like plain rice, which is great, you know, so I'm a plain rice guy. So that meal was absolutely first class.
What's your favorite meat? What's your thing?
Oh, lamb at the moment. Yeah, lamb. Although it's expensive, it's more expensive than pork. But I am a carnivore, and although I can be weaned off if I keep eating that sort of kai. Hey, but that was superb. I must say, I really enjoyed that meal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You mentioned lamb being expensive.
Yeah.
What's not? Eh?
Oh yeah, man. It's yeah.
Getting caught rustling the lamb is more expensive.
Oh man. What?
Yeah. No, it is. It's expensive to eat. You know, our people are sucked into high sugar foods, and you know, and still, you know, the cost of living is disproportionate. You know,
Cost of surviving.
Yeah. You know, and I think to go back to doing our marakai, our gardens, and that I think is really, it's getting to be more and more important.
Yep.
And learning. You know, we've lost that art. You know, we're reliant upon refrigerated processed foods. You know, a lot of us are really busy, and you know, we don't have the time to eat the stuff we should be eating. It's just grab and eat and off out the door somewhere, going to do something. But I think we need to take stock. I think, you know, I see your veggie garden outside, and we've attempted to do the same. And but you know, people aren't living on big spread out.
That's right.
Properties anymore to be able to do that. So we need to look at smaller marakai, you know, smaller gardens.
And collaborative as well, right? Because if you got a little space, but you grow one thing well, and you grow one thing, then we can swap.
That's
then
right.
We can help each other.
Yeah. It's you know, the you know, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, heading into the 2000s is more about there's more awareness since the 90s about this food phenomena. It's about convenience, you know, and the big companies process, or they freeze dry, or they package, or they sell, you know, use by dates and all this sort of thing. We've got to start to rethink.
Yeah.
You know, how we eat. You know, I don't know what the statistics are in terms. You know, we just lost a good friend through illness, quite young. You know, in his 50s. You know, and maybe you know, I could probably speak for thousands here, but maybe our diets are not being very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's more awareness now about sugars. Hey, that's been a real poison for us. I remember the days back, you know, there was 9 of us, and it was not uncommon to just squeeze a bit of cow's milk into a bottle, teaspoon of sugar, put the teat on it, shake it up a bit, heat it in the jug, and there you go, baby.
There you go.
You know, hey, that was common.
Yes,
that's how the mothers, you know, look. You know, today there's all this sophisticated milks and and stuff that we never had any of that. So
and you just nailed it, because it's just what you know.
Yeah.
So how can you blame someone that has just been doing something that her mom was doing and now the daughter does?
Yeah.
And it's just a generational thing.
That's right.
Habit.
Yeah. Well, you know, we were given milk at school. So I remember back in the day, you're given a little bottle of milk, eh?
Forcibly.
Yeah. They made you.
No,
they made you drink
compulsory.
it. Yeah.
And Maoris, because we came out of that Austronesian line of genetics, we're often dairy, lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
Hugely.
Yeah. You know.
But it was a compulsory part of the promotion of dairying's going to save the world, and dairying's going to do this, and dairying's going to do that.
Yeah.
My mum's people are from Taranaki, and it's a centre for dairy farming, and we've lived off it well, and we're thankful for that. But all of that land was raupatu, was taken, and we lost 3.5 million acres of land in one hit, in one confiscation.
Yeah.
So,
When it comes,
cheery note to start on.
no, I was just thinking about it's great start. When it comes to Maori and the land back movement, I wonder how it is, because like some of the land has been poisoned, you know, like it was not like that. Even if Maori get it back, it's just not fair, because.
Well, yeah, there's a lot to say about this. The land's coming back. I mean, when you consider that the land coming back only represents 3 to 5% of truly what we lost, you know. But you know, we can't. I suppose we know that. We all know that. We know the New Zealand taxpayer can't really compensate us for what they've gained and what we've lost. So, however, it has affected us deeply, and you know, we're part of this whole worldwide economy now. We're competitors in that. You know, the day Cook hit the beach at Whanganui-A-Hei, our lives changed. You know, we came down from the maunga. You know, we came out of our whares. Now we'd seen this man come ashore. It's like Neil Armstrong coming, you know, hitting the moon. He leaves his footprint in the moon. What does he say? He says, one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind, something along those lines. Well, that was the same thing that happened in November 12, 1769 for us at Whanganui-A-Hei. And some of us, I don't know. I can't say what they felt or what they saw when they saw that. They saw this man climb out of the boat, and with his tunic on and his shiny buttons and his eyes in the back of his head, because they paddle backwards, you know, all this sort of thing. And they were challenged, but they had but from that time onwards, you know, things were changed for us. And so, so here we are today.
Do you both of you, do you feel like Aotearoa in general understands the importance of the region where we are, where we live, of Whanganui-A-Hei?
It's not widely known. You know, sometimes I say, this is where, the beginnings, this is where Aotearoa was going to be sort of...
Because of the tapu as well, right?
Yeah, Polynesian.
We're not just talking about Cook, we're actually...
talking about tapu as well, the Polynesian history, and or Tahitian. The Tahitians, the arrival of the Tahitians, tapu, Kupe, all these great seafarers, Polynesian seafarers of the time. Yeah, and so the real, and even then there were people here prior to that. It is said, and when of course there's this Polynesian arrival. But the question, if you look at the through the kōrero and the legends, there were people here prior to that. So it goes on, and then Kupe arrives. He adds a Polynesian element to our genetics, I suppose. And so you have, and then that goes through its historical account, and then you've got the arrival of captains and others, So, I mean, we were the last thing before the Antarctic, and so the whole of the Polynesian Rim was virtually explored. It includes Asia, right? Includes Taiwan and probably southern China, Japan. The northern Japan, they look very Polynesian. Northern Japan. You come down to Taiwan and they speak the same reo as us almost. They have taumoko as well. So then you come down, for some reason we just skirted past Australia. Maybe the Aboriginal folk there look really fierce, so you don't mess with those hombres. I don't know what it was, but and we wound up in Aotearoa. That became our last, what has been historically interpreted as being the last stop for Polynesia. But I don't think so. We went to, there's stories out of Whitianga Tairua that also went to the sub-Antarctic, into the Antarctic, sub-Antarctic. So we completed the whole circle in terms of, the Pacific Ocean, which is the Whanganui-A-Hei, which is the biggest ocean of all the oceans. So, so there were these historical accounts and layers of anthropological, evidence and kōrero and our whakapapa and our kōrero. All the tribes have, that point the way, I suppose, in terms of our indigeneity and our as a sea people, as a Polynesian people.
Do we know much about the people who were here before? The Polynesians, the Maori? Do we have information, or is more like speculation, let's say?
No, there's different kōrero and iwi. We became tangata whenua in a bunch of ways. We had rituals to naturalise ourselves and become tangata whenua that were done. What I want to talk about is the stuff that Joe was talking about before.
Please.
After tea, about Winston saying, Māori aren't indigenous people. I get where he's coming from, but saying that is a way of dispensing with 1,000 years of occupation, as if to say, that 1,000 years doesn't count. We're all the same. No, we're not.
No.
You can't just discount 1,000 years of occupation, of ahika and a whole bunch of other stuff. And some of us can trace their descent lines back to the original people of the land. Some of them were human, some of them weren't human. Now in the Western world, that's rubbish and boohoo, but it's no less, rubbish than saying a Jewish carpenter walked on water 2,000 years ago. Same diff. How do I know my mum and dad are my mum and dad? Because someone told me. How do I know they weren't lying? I don't know. I take it on faith. So when it comes to that kind of stuff, that's where we're at. But I don't doubt that Winston may genuinely believe what he said was all in cool, and I don't have a problem in having his opinion, and that's all cool. But he tends to say these types of things just before
an election,
and that's okay, and I totally respect him because you still respect him and you respect his views and stuff like that. But trying to discount stuff that was already here doesn't make it okay. It's like if David Seymour I thought he handled himself really, really well in the interview with Moana. I don't agree with a bunch of other stuff, but interview handled it. Moana, I don't think if I could interview someone, hold it together like that. But by saying, we're all one people, we're all under one. If democracy was a big thing, it would have been a thing when Māori were in the vast majority. It only became important when Europeans outnumbered us. Now, do you discount the 1,000 years of occupation beforehand? Hell no. You can't do that and say that we've all started on equal footing. We know it's bullshit.
Yeah.
We need to stop talking bullshit and taking bullshit on and just think about it a little. That would mean that if I got a bunch of at least moved into the poshest street in this town, we bought a bunch of houses up and we turned their stereos up till everyone and move out, that's okay. And in an age, you can't justify bullying. We're not trying to measure what other people did a long time ago by or what we perceive of today, but what we can do is that kind of stuff's not sustainable on a planet where we may have cashed in our last ticket for sustainability. We're not talking about cash system or a culture. We're talking about literal spatial.
Is there anything than a Maori person taking power in Aotearoa and not governing for Maori? I cannot think of anything worse than that. Come on.
Yeah, well, look at Obama. Did he do right by the African American when he came into power? And no, he towed the line. You know, all the politicians are pretty much the same. They're put there by this so-called democratic system. You know, and they put there. You know, America. Well, we can't compare New Zealand to America, but certainly if Winston came into power, you know, if he really came into power, would he make a difference? I don't think so. He'd have to. He has to pander to his voting, you know, his constituents. So, and he has to, you know, he couldn't. You know, it'd be seen as being separatist if he came out and did things specially for Māori. He couldn't. That's the democratic capitalist system that we live in, you know. And, you know, this whole, you know, the whole question now is of course, Māori still having to struggle for everything they can argue for. And the arguments are justified and they're valid. A classic example of all these, about the justification of those arguments is the apology that the Crown gives to all the tribes settling their treaty settlements.
Oh yeah, when did that come about? When did it happen?
Well, one of the, it's a subject that's not spoken about much in treaty settlements, and it should be front and centre. It should be front and centre, that apology, because you know what, the English don't like apologising for anything. The British, or more specifically the English, because we're dealing with the Crown here. So they reluctantly apologise for anything, and
so you're talking about the monarchy as
the monarchy, yeah,
the face of the monarchy.
Yeah, they don't apologise for anything. You know, they don't. You know, so that should be front and centre of every treaty settlement. And that also, you know, I'm going to have, like for instance, our apology, I'm going to have that blown up and sitting in my office to remind everyone that walks into that office or you know, that there it is. I don't have to say anything more. The Crown apologising to us for what they did to us, the atrocities, the thefts, the you know, they even gave us the Bible and broke those rules, right? The 10 Commandments. They even broke them themselves, you know, whether wittingly or unwittingly, or deliberately, mostly deliberately back in those days, because the best way to soften up Indigenous people is to bring in, the clergy, the cloth, you know, being pious and all that. Kei te pai tērā, we wanted that. We wanted those values. Mm-hmm. We agreed with those values. We agreed with them. And we wanted those values, but did they uphold them themselves? There's the question. Hence, you know, even back in 1840, those rangatira saw that they were having problems. You know, I didn't know, right? For instance, I didn't know. You know, you watch the Pirates of the Caribbean, right? You know, you see Jack all over the place, and you got this one-legged guy, Jack Black or whatever, whoever, you know, the parrot on the shoulder. I didn't know that New Zealand was the haven for pirates. I didn't realise that. The South Seas, the cannibalism, the this, the that. That's how they projected us to be. In the hellhole of there's a little town in the north. I won't mention its name. There's a little town, right? That their currency was rum, alcohol. They were, it's in the history books. You can't deny it. And there was prostitution. There was this. There was that. And I didn't know that we were the hellhole of the South. I didn't realise that till later on in life. And I shake my head in disbelief that this went on. That this was, hence our chiefs were concerned about what they were seeing, breaking all those precepts, those values that were in the Paipera of the Bible. And they had to do something about that. That's why they call this thing called the rangatira, right? They talked about that. The chiefs came together, talked about it at Waitangi, and amongst other things. But one of the reasons was the misbehaviour or the bad behaviour of the Navy, the sailors,
the gangs, the white gangs at
the time,
and they wanted co-governance, so that Pākehā would sort out their gangs, because they knew that if a Māori went in and did things Māori style, would end up with gunboats off on their coast.
So the whites wanted co-governance first.
No, we wanted co-governance with Pākehā so they could sort out their people they sent over here.
They were causing trouble.
Sort your immigrants out, sort your people out. Otherwise, you don't want us sorting them out for you, because that's about to happen if you don't do something now. So that was the whole thing with Bledisloe and all of them. They had to do something. They had the French starting to congregate up there in the Hokianga. They had so you had all of these. The Americans were showing up. The sealers and the whalers, they were showing up. So you had an American influence in there. So you had all the Portuguese. And the gangs. The pirates. But anyway, so you had all of this going on, and so the chiefs, in their own wisdom, said, "Look, we've got to do something about this. We have to have law and order. We have to have some sort of
take back our country."
Yeah. Now, that came later again, but there was
in division by race.
So you had all of this going on. You had all of this stuff going on, and which led to the 1840. Okay, let's have a treaty. There was one before that. There was the Whakaputanga, the 1835
Declaration of Independence, which acknowledged New Zealand's first flag, which Maori chiefs used as a trading flag.
That's right,
because you couldn't trade overseas without a flag.
So we had all that. We had the systems in place,
and we were trading. They've never stopped using that flag. They've used it continuously since then.
Yeah.
Europeans flew it when they wanted to trade.
Yeah.
It's the white one.
There were even pacts. There were even pacts and agreements signed between Japan and us, before the war, right? We had all these trade agreements lined up. We had great exporters, shipbuilders, and
my nanny owned a flour mill.
Yeah.
They traded.
They were very they're self-sufficient, and of course that didn't go down too well, did it?
No, it didn't.
The competition didn't go down.
Mid-South Waikato, they had one of the most fertile, highest concentrations of fertility in the world, and they were trading all around the world. And Europeans here couldn't compete, so they made a conscious decision to invade a place called Rangi-A-Hei. They say it happened on a Sabbath, because Māoris wouldn't fight on the Sabbath, because in that particular settlement they were Christian. Yeah. People were killed on that day, and the people were put off their land. The tribe that were there bought a piece of land, and it's the only land that they have in their name now, and it's not that much bigger than a bus stop, but they bought it to make a point. And because they were able to undercut Europeans at market in Auckland for stuff that was going offshore, that was, you can argue, very, very strongly, and lots of well-known historians do. That's why there was a conscious decision to choose pastoralism as a future for developing this country's economics, because Māoris couldn't get the capital couldn't get loans from banks because we had collective land ownership to get the stock and the numbers that Europeans were able to do. But that's all tied up with you've seen that book that guy put about Pukekohe being voted so many times the most racist place in New Zealand. Well, that's kind of a cut-off line. Any Māoris from that area that went south of the line to see the relations, they were told, we're going to take everything from you because you're rebels. Because we said if you go and see your family, you're rebels. And in a conversation Governor Gray had with one of the chiefs down the ways, he just told them, we'll starve you, we'll kill your cows, your children, your women, your animals.
Yeah.
I don't know if any kids from Whitianga... Oh, no. 2 or 3 weeks ago, a group went across from Mercury Bay, and I think they would have visited the rangatira... At the Pa, where they've done it up, and they do a fantastic presentation outlining that. And those attitudes that are associated with Pukekohe in that area. Oh, it's also a reason that the movie Mount Zion was filmed in that area, because the Māoris working on those farms were often the Māoris that had been dispossessed of their land, and so they were living in shittest conditions. And when you went into town, you knew that if you're ordering and a white person comes in the shop, you get to the back of the line and you wait till the white people have been served first.
Yeah. There was an article, of that woman who got beaten in the shop, and then this guy was kicking her, and then the daughter had to jump on top to protect her mum, just for no reason. Just it's...
there was a reason.
Yeah, well, of course there was that reason. There was that reason. But the shock, even during the World War II, there's stories of what Princess Tepuya had to go through to while the Americans were here, the American soldiers were here. There's all these stories you read about.
The media blackouts, Queen Street, Wellington.
Yeah.
Americans wouldn't drink with colours in their bars and their pubs and stuff, and because white Kiwis had made mates with Māoris, or they just didn't want to be that white guy. So there were media blackouts. There was a major one of 3 or 4 days on Queen Street. The street was smashed. Yeah. And was Kiwis running around bashing Yanks and vice versa. I've got relations that had a grand auntie that was mistreated by... I know there was at least one particular American soldier, and they managed to track him down. Yeah. And supposedly he's...
Yeah.
Was dealt to. It never was recorded as MIA.
Do you guys feel like the problem with when it comes to co-governance being such a, oh my God, don't say the word, is it pure racism, or there's a lot of ignorance of what it would mean?
Well, they don't want us to have the power we should have. Hey, who's they? That's a good question.
Well, there's normal, and people just want normal. But this person's normal is not that person's normal, and their normals may not be my normal.
But because the arguments that I hear just recently, actually, from parties like ACT and National, that say this is nonsense because New Zealand is one as a nation, and the people is the same. And I'm like, I don't think it works like that. It works like that when it's for the benefit of the one who is already taking more advantage of a system. Am I right with this way of thinking? Because for me, it doesn't add up. That's why I'm asking if for the majority of the people, it's a racism thing, or if they're just not aware of the historical context of the nation where they live, of the place where they're from.
It's the old fear thing, It's like the foreshore seabed, It's fear. Now that now this Three Waters thing and all that's come up, and they don't want us at the governance table, and we've been stereotyped as being more like in operations, the guy standing at the end of the shovel, he's going to dig up the valve to fix the valve and what have you. That's where they see us. They don't see us in governance, right? They don't see us sitting at board tables being part of the decision-making process. And, you know, you can interpret who they are, but, you know, and it's, and this is what, it's just, you know, that apology I refer back to, you know, they need to really look at that apology and what does that really mean?
The why.
Yeah.
It's an acknowledgement
why.
of something.
Yeah. You know, we were a sovereign people. We gave up that sovereignty. Not entirely. Not all of us did. Not everyone signed up to it.
In the English version that 30-odd chiefs sold, but 500 plus signed the Māori version that all Māori understood at the time.
That's right.
And they say two different things.
That's right.
So for people to say, the treaty says this and this and this, if they're speaking about the English text, they're right in their heads, but it's not the treaty. Because for us, the treaty wasn't the pieces of paper. It was the kōrero and the understanding between people with mana on two sides of the table.
The mana of the person across from you. Which
is why acknowledgement and apologies are more important to iwi than getting 1 to 3% back on what was yours. And then everyone says, oh, that iwi's got lots of money. But when they get land back, the money gets taken out of that imaginary fund for them to get their own stuff back. Joe mentioned Princess Te Puia before. Tūranga Waewae Marae is the marae at the centre of the King movement. They bought that land. It was their land. It was taken from them, but they bought it. She raised funds with a group of children. She toured around. They do concerts. They had to buy back their own land, and at the time it was being used as a tip by Europeans in Ngāti Hei. And it used to flood every winter. But there was a dream and a prophecy, and it said that this is where we're going to be, so she did it. And getting back to your question, yes, definitely ignorance, because ignorance breeds fear.
Yeah.
And some people capitalise on fear, particularly around elections, particularly when they want to radicalise people and stir them up. We've heard in the news about 6 or 7-ish weeks ago during a question answer session, Rawiri Waititi brought up with the Prime Minister, the greatest threat to internal security in New Zealand at the moment is the radicalisation of young white men by extreme white supremacist groups. Not brown ones, not Islamic ones, not anything else. But all of the things we tend to be stereotyped as acting like those gangs back pre-1840, those are the same stereotypes that were dumped on the Irish when the English wanted to get them off the land. And then what happened? Oh, there's a potato famine. There was no potato famine in Ireland. That was a strategy employed by the British military to starve Irish people off their farms. So what did they do? Millions of them ended up in the States. So by the time the colonial machine got to New Zealand, it was a well-oiled machine. It was the most efficient machine of its time. And there have been other machines that did the same thing at other times in history. Not trying to say that's not a thing, but when it comes to New Zealand, when you talk about fairness, you have to talk about fairness, not pretend fairness, or fairness for people like you said are beneficiaries of entitlement and have been for close to 200 years. And then say, okay, we're all on a playing level field. No, we're not. Moana's arguments to David Seymour was, well, look at these stats, health stats, housing stats with Māori, and say, prison. As individuals, blah, 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 we're tribal people. A lot of our people are disconnected from their tribal roots, but what we have when we do the eyebrows, we connect to people. I can whakapapa to Joe, he can whakapapa to me if we need to be, and we extend that to our Pākehā colleagues and friends, because that's how we relate to people. We use it in business, we use it in education, but from people that are obsessively, narcissistically, invested in talking about my stuff, it's hard to see that point of view. I'd argue that being a bit more collective in the way you do things is probably what's going to allow us to stay alive, or say to allow a portion of the human population to stay viable on the planet, maybe for just 200 or 300 more years, if we're lucky, a bit longer. But that my stuff thing, that's a form of insanity. Talk to any Indigenous person or any person that's not thinking in that such a narrow space, it's not sustainable. It's ridiculous. So when you've got two right-wing parties that are talking about doing away with stuff that's trying to look after sustainability of the earth, increase road building and shit like that, that's just shit.
Yeah.
Hamuti.
Yeah, the infrastructure and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. You know, you see that now. You see...
the infrastructure of the coffin will die. Is what it is.
But yeah, it's a deep... there's, you know, Māori, you know, our marae, our Kaumātua queer, are having a hard time now with our youth, trying to convince them, or trying to, you know, for them for our people to maintain their strengths socially. I'm not talking about tribally or in a communist way. I'm talking about socially, because that's what we are today.
Arohaki te tangata.
Aye, you know, socially, and to try and it's a hard thing. Anything good is hard, you know. And unfortunately, our kids they'll look at the baubles, and they'll look at the, you know, the golden necklaces and the Ferraris and Lambos and all the trinkets that others dangle to keep them convert them, I suppose. A type of conversion, you know, and our marae are struggling, and the government programs, we need more support to be able to get our young people to see that there's a better quality of life can come out of something that's hard fought for, legitimate. He does business, and the corporates and the businesses of today, or the banks that finance you into an opportunity, right? Is that actually working for our youth? Is it going to work for our youth? You know, I'm not talking about the ones that are born into wealth, born with silver spoons in their mouths, or they're going to inherit incredible wealth, or they're survivors, or they come through certain family lines, Pākehā family lines, that have survived off the kauri timber, the flax, the kauri gum, you know, the old money families, Pākehā families that are, and the big farmers that had bought, intergenerational farmers that had bought huge tracts of dairy and sheep and beef, you know.
Maori
even
I'd argue it's not even just you're not even just talking about an appeal to Māori youth. It's most people are disenfranchised by an elite. It's certainly not a Māori elite.
No.
That thing that's been doing the rounds. 50% of New Zealand's wealth is controlled by 8 families.
Julian Bachelor?
Yep. Oh, Julie. Rhymes with spatula. He used it for stirring shit. That's what he used it for. Just some of the terrible, just misinformation.
Yeah.
Joe.
That's where we like you, because it's nice to hear some facts now and again on alternative media.
And I'll tell you what, even a person like Julian Bachelor, whoever is spreading those ideas, I would still have a chat, because, you know, like, sometimes I feel like the real korero is the one that inspires, and you never know what those seeds that you plant, what they're gonna do. You know, like, sometimes off air, or sometimes even before the show when we're having a meal together, sometimes you see people, you can see in their eyes that they're thinking about something that maybe they didn't think before. And how do you do that? If it's not tying him up and setting him on fire, how are you going to do it? You're going to have to have a chat at some stage and see if people change their minds.
Yeah, you've got as much right as anyone else to say what he wants to, but when he's trading in misinformation deliberately.
And then you got to trust the law, right? Which I don't know if we can trust that much to hold him accountable.
I'd say most Indigenous people in their own lands tend not to trust the law, because it was the law that already tended to help marginalise them from their connection to their own wealth, whether it's intellectual wealth, cultural wealth, and whatever else. There's a natural, I'll call it a natural distrust, but I think more and more people that, whether they're Māori or not, are just feeling the pressure. And while we're feeling the pressure, there's an increasingly small amount of people that aren't feeling the pressure. If you look at the number of corporations that made huge profits over the COVID era, what the hell is that about?
Yeah.
What the hell is that about?
Yeah. And
speculation.
And where I was going is like touching on what you said, Joe, about how hard it is to talk to that youth and show to them those values. It feels to me that it's hard for a reason, because you need that labor, you need those dreamers in a system that exists because you have people wishing to have something they will never have.
Yeah, that's right.
But they are very aware of the possibility of maybe I will. Yeah. No one tells them that it's 0.1%. No one tells them that. Yeah. But there is an opportunity if you work hard. Oh, that one for me is the worst. You don't work hard enough. And I'm like, what do you mean?
The dream thing is fine, but then there's the pushes of the opiate of the masses. So, because it's not just their kids get hammered with all that crap on meat, I'd say most of you think there's too much crap that their kids are exposed to. And a lot of the things we can do as individuals to fix that is, as parents, put limits on stuff, and as parents, be the parent. Stop negotiating with your kids. You're there, they're there, and it's not to take away power or anything, but gee, there's a lot of inversion of what I always supposed was a natural way of things would fall.
It's and to try and convince our kids that it comes through hard work, dedication, commitment, and tautoko, and our social, our marae, and our marae, our Kaumātua kui are struggling, and it's very difficult to compete with what's going on out there in the world, our young ones, and to provide for them and give them assurance that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And everyone has to get into the garden and work, the mara, and make it work. In other words, to feed yourself. It's not a freebie or it's actually the hard. When something's hard, when you get there, the hard work is worthwhile. It builds character. It builds dedication and commitment.
Well, how you guys started the conversation at the beginning of the podcast, just talking about marakai.
Yeah.
Smaller marakai. Well, the one product of having that marakai is you get fed. But the more important thing is the social product, and that's just collectivism. Right. The way you make a family is you work together. What's a hapū? A bunch of families that work together. Yeah. What's a niwi? A bunch of hapū that work together. Yeah. What's a community? A bunch of people that just pull in when we need to.
That's right.
Is the dissemination of culture, is the explaining and putting out there what the culture is, a way of getting that youth on board? Is it the arts? What do you see as good ways?
Less hui, more doing. Definitely. Yeah. In schools, we tend to talk about things, and I'm an adult and I don't want to hear people talking. It's just do stuff.
Yeah. It's been actually, if I had the opportunities like our young ones have today, man, I'd be right in the middle of all of that stuff. I'd be at Waikato University. I'd be, finding, even to write a book or something, or just to be involved at the marae, whether it's in the wharekai or going to learn your reo. Taking up the reo is springboards you into a whole other thing. Once you get to that level of understanding in the reo, then I don't say it opens the doors. What it takes you to, it's because it's infinite. It's you think you're at I'm at that place. Then there's more to learn. It doesn't stop. And it's the same in the parking world too. If you want to, you go on to be your bachelor, then you go on to get your masters, and then you get your, you go for your doctorate, and then it goes on and on and on. And it's to have, I'd be swimming in it. If I could live my life all over again, make those choices, I'd be definitely wanting to expand my understanding. See, we all understand the Pākehā world. Hey, we're indoctrinated into that when, from 5-year-olds. We get it. We know that. And then now we need to balance that up. We need to you need to bring our Māori world up as well. To have both is indeed, a huge contribution to society in general. It's not just, and the Māori world, of course, but to society in general. That's where the growth is. That's where you can't have one bunch of people oppressing another bunch of people. You've got that impression. Look at this whitianga. How diverse is that? You got whitianga waterways over here, right? These guys are, the super rich of Aotearoa. And then on the other hand, you have this undercurrent of people living back into the hinterland, and they choose to. A lot of them choose to live like that. There's such a contrast between the two. It's almost, it gives, how in the States now they say, oh, there's no more middle class. Well, it's the same here, in another way. There is no more middle class. That you're either going to be, pohara, or you're going to be, you're going to have the big yacht down the waterways, the helicopter and all this sort of thing.
Or aspiring to be either way.
Either way.
And that's a sickness I see as a global phenomenon. It always annoyed me in American politics. They talk about Democrats, Republican, left-wing or right-wing. Those words may be useful tools in some discussions, but no person, thing, group or organisation is just left-wing or right-wing. Like people say, Māori naturally gravitate to the left. That's not true. Tamati Ridi would often talk about it, how he just thought it was automatically we become part of the amorphous proletariat mass that's accounted to the bourgeoisie on this side. And he said, how insulting. All Māori tribes have rangatira, aristocrats, if you want to call it that. And then you have ordinary people, but the difference in Māoridom and in Polynesia is we're small village people, and the king is the older brother of a line, and the fella doing the dishes at the back comes from a junior thing, but they're brothers. And if you can think your lines, you don't get that distancing from people that are way over there and people that are way over there. Now, we show respect to our ariki and high-ranking people in their tribes and stuff, but part of the reason we do it is we know that they're there for us and their family, and we can describe that in really simple, close terms.
Yeah. You see, you come back to the Whakapapa, like from my Whakapapa, right, on my Ngāti Hei side, we start off, there was a marriage between a deity, an atua, and a woman in human form down here on earth, Puhaurangi and Kurai Manoa, right? That's where it starts, up the Aotearoa Whakapapa. And that line carries on all the way down to Tamatakapua, and then down through into Hauraki, into the east coast, down into Rotorua, Kaumātua, all those Whakapapa. Now, yeah, but let's go back to the very beginning again. What does that tell you? Brandon, was there? You were asking, was there a people here before us? Hi. Well, that's that pūhaurangi side of our Whakapapa. Where was pūhaurangi from? The heavens. Ranginui, the heavens. So what? As I think about that all the time. What does that mean? And then marries a woman in human form, or a human woman. So they're talking about ranginui, and they're talking about kawairunga, kawairunga, which means the heavens, the spirituality, the
non-secular.
Yeah,
Celestial.
yes, you know, that world.
Yes.
And then you talk about kawelaro, the moving jaw, the bottom jaw, kawelaro, kawerunga kawelaro. You know, that's where we are in human form. So that they compare that to a upoko, a skull, or you know, the bottom jaw, the upper jaw. That's how we see it. That's how we see it. And or the tohunga or the pukenga of the old ages, and so that whakapapa down to us, down to, you know, we have a blue blood line. We have the Ariki lines. It's the same as the royalty. It's the same as royalty. And those lines are important to our people.
But the difference is we don't have that distance.
No.
We're the youngest Polynesians.
Yeah.
We're the youngest outpost of Polynesians, so you didn't get that development of caste distancing between people from those lines and those lines. It's not hard to draw really closely to each other. It's probably why they came up with the name 2 degrees for the telephone company. 2 degrees of separation from one Kiwi to another. We were there. We were the IWI before the K jumped on the start.
So it's an indigenous, you know, the Maori worldview.
I guess another thing I just thought of too, Joe, was when you were talking about the blue blood lines in Europe. I guess part of the reason some people are investing in, and it's just only my personal opinion, but some unhealthy discussions that aren't based on good information, that aren't based on information full stop, is because if you're not in the land that your people come from, or you can't say, I'm talking about the whenua here, and I'm not saying, I'm talking about that in self-defining terms. If your people have been in a country for 4 or 5 generations, maybe 6 only, and you can't connect to the land and other things, that's why my stuff becomes very important. Because you see that as your tūranga waiwai, but some of the, I'll put it this way, what's a chief in Māoridom? They're the people that got stuff that they always give to other people first. Or they're the ones that people go to and say, oh, uncle, we don't have a such and such, can we have your, and then they'll just give it, and they'll give it. So they may not be rich in terms of material stuff, but when it comes to, you know, social credits, they're the people that give, and you see that when people die. There's the chiefs, people will go to their funerals because they have to, and then there are the chiefs that pass away and they go there because they want to be there.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's not the reason why you go to all of them. It's just because.
Well, there is meritocracy in this. Yeah, you're based on your merits as well.
Well, the
in
family
battle.
stuff, but sometimes you know these people that you respect them because you should, and then there are people that you respect them because you love them.
Yeah.
And if you could have walked in front of the bus instead of them, then maybe you would have.
Yeah.
Joe, I'm so glad you brought that up, because it means a lot to us to have you here. Thank you very much. And when I was reading, Brandon sent me a little bio that was approved by Ngāti Hei.
I got off the site.
You got it.
So I figured that means it's authorized.
Fact checked and all this stuff, you know, very important nowadays.
Because I didn't want to keep ringing you and being a whoa.
Nah, good job. And then it says, I was very intrigued by that part. You represent Ngāti Hei and Ngāpuhi as a treaty negotiator.
Yeah. Well,
is that correct?
Yeah. No, not with Ngāpuhi anymore. That's
not
changed.
Not with Ngāpuhi anymore.
Yeah, that's all changed now.
So before you tell me that,
the original, that write-up originally was off the Governor General's site, hey?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I was there at the beginning.
At that time.
Yeah.
Hey.
Right.
Things have changed.
Before you explain to me why things are changing and how did that come to you, how did that end up to you as a responsibility, why do people fear so much or a bit like skeptical about Ngāpuhi? So what was the thing with the tribe Ngāpuhi that all the Maoris and all the Iwis are a bit like, ooh?
Yeah. Well, it's, you see, it was the damage Hongi did with once he acquired the armaments, the modern armaments that he'd seen in England. The Hongi, to take, you know, to
So Hongi was like the leader. The
He
chief
was
of the,
he was the warlord of the time.
warlord.
Yeah. In Ngāpuhi, you can't say he's higher than that. It's a chief or that higher. They're all their maunga. No. Each hapū, as far as they were concerned, each chief sat on their own maunga, and there is no one higher than themselves. So they all thought like that. You got 125 hapū up there.
Can't do that. That's a
So you got 125 chiefs.
Smalls thing. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
No. It's like when they went looking for to start the kingitanga, when they went down to
Everywhere.
Yeah, they went all over looking for who wants to be the king, and Te Tara Pipipi, Tamihana, and they went looking, the idea of having a king, and Pākehā had a king. Why doesn't the question was asked? I don't know by who asked the question, but the question was asked. Why doesn't Māori have a king? A king. And so they went around the country looking, and they went north, to Ngāpuhi, and they asked Tama Te Wakanene if he would like to be the first Māori king, and he declined. So they went everywhere they went. Hey. There's a waiata, Taranaki, we wa ki Taranaki. Anyway, they talk about this hikoi, when they went looking to be who was going to be the king before they settled on
consultation round.
Consultation round, exactly. Select
friendly?
committee.
Oh, no, definitely.
Friendly.
People saw that there was a need to unite because your enemy is in brown.
Yeah.
So we need a
There's
single
another.
voice to speak for us.
Yeah.
But in Māori style,
That's right.
people would defer
Yeah.
in a way that meant they weren't losing their own mana. But obviously at the time there must be someone that can call on more stuff, that can go and make it happen. And if you're surrounded by relations, first, second cousins that have been eyeing up your patch for the last 10 generations, then you'll probably say, oh no, ask them because I'm busy. That kind of stuff.
Yeah. And so they go down to Gisborne, down to and they ask the chief down there, Te Kania Takira. Right. They ask him. He says, "What do you mean you come down here to ask if I want to be a king? I'm already the king." That's rangatira whakaro, eh? That's the way the rangatira were. Hongi's no different. Northern, no matter what. Let's look at it in this light. If Ngāti Hei would have received the muskets first, set up the trade, right? The trade of mokomokai and all this sort of thing, and we received the muskets first, and the shots and the powder, the cannons, the rockets, whatever. You went to England, set up the trade deal. What would you think Ngāti Hei would do? The same bloody thing. We'd go there and conquer the bloody world if we could. Because that's who we were back then. We were the rangatira. We were the consummate warriors. That's all we, our people. No different to Alexander the Great or Napoleon or Kublai Khan, or that's how it was back. And put yourself back in 1800 or 1850s. After Hongi died in 1828. Right, that's when he died of his wounds in 1828. See, and that's why, and so it wasn't very far after Cook, not more than 50 years after Cook had arrived, right, and so that so in that time, Hongi kept an account of all the battles and insults. And, each tribe had all this, we call it tararu. They all had it. It's our way of politics. So, and so Hongi made it his mission to put his uri everywhere. Do you want to elaborate on that for me, Brandon? Or his uri, he wanted to put
descendants or relatives. But I've noticed some people, they're mixing it up with the word ure, which means penis. So make sure uri.
It's the children,
descendants.
To have descendants.
As opposed to
bloodlines and whakapapa to all the hapū. then that way he had paramount, and he became paramount, an overarching tupuna ancestor. Yeah. So with that comes the power. You know, comes the tribal true arikitanga. And so that was his goal. Right.
That Genghis Khan thing of spreading the seed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Genghis Khan.
But in that fashion also, with that power comes obligation to maintain those.
That's right.
Obligation to all of those.
Yeah, responsibility and everything. And he worked in the gardens too. Is he didn't shirk his responsibility. He worked in the garden like most chiefs did. You know, they dropped their guns and whatever. It's time to go and do the garden. They did that. Now, in for Hongi, remember Hongi goes to England, he goes to Sydney, he goes to Poihakena, he goes to Ingarangi, he goes to England. He even, everyone says that Hauraki hei I tō mātou matuitarangi, our Father who art in heaven, the Lord's Prayer, and that he wrote that. He translated it. Everyone says it. That's from Hongi Hika, right? He translated it. So a lot of things that like the samurai, there's times to fight, and then there's times to be creative and write and be poets or whatever.
The scholar,
the right waiata, our waiata, our haka, and this is exactly the same thing. If you're bigger and tougher than everyone, you'll get to be a general. Yeah. But you got to have a brain to be the chief. That's right. That's
and everyone knows that.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
Yeah. And so Hongi, well, I have a bias because Hongi's my tupuna as well. So I would say, well, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the way it was. They were all thinking the same thing. Our own hauraki rangatira. The great fighters and warriors of the time, the chiefs, Te Horeta, Te Taniwha, Taraia Ngākuchi, Hihitaua, all these fighting chiefs of the time, they, same whakaro, that nothing was an obstacle to them.
You just described who the corporate movers and shakers were.
Yeah.
Pre-1840.
Yeah, it's and later after 1828, of course, then when the Hongi, there's two big dates for us. One is when Cook arrived, 1769, massive change, right? That goes through that. The whalers and the sealers and the immigrants all come and so in a space of 50 years. Hongi Hika comes, 1820, and dies in 1828. So you had, there was others as well, but however, Hongi was one of the biggest. What would you call him? The Terminator, the Terminator. Change. Who's ever made big change to Ngāti Hei. All these big changes to Ngāti Hei, those would be the two biggest dates for us. After 1828, after Hongi's death, we were elated, of course. Ngāti Hei would have been elated, but there were the dogs of war that came after that, the clean up crews, right? Trying to make a name for themselves too, because those young warriors are all looking for their own, to get their own stripes, eh? So. And the slim pickings that were on, you just had to follow Hongi Hika, and to pick up the pieces and pick off the pieces. However, Ngāti Hei, of course, suffered. Of course, one of his nieces were killed here in Whitianga. Another one was killed down further down the line. That's why he came. Two reasons why he came to Whitianga. One is to end trade. He wanted trade to happen as an economic thing. Happened in Kirikiri, in the Bay of Islands, right? And that's where he wanted to, Russell. The Parliament was the first Parliament of New Zealand, happened in Russell, right? Then it was, it got a bit hot up there with Honeheke, of course. They're shooting the place up and cutting down the flagstaff, and it got a bit hot up there, so they moved it to Auckland, right? And then from Auckland, you know, there was the fear of Honeheke coming down and conquering, you know, taking out Auckland. You had our chiefs from Hauraki wanting to go up to Tāmaki, Makota.
Even some schools.
Yeah.
And so,
Hori nā kapa whanaunga, and then wanted to go up to Auckland to take out the Redcoats, right? The British, right? They were just spoiling for a fight. They were going to cop it from the south, from Hori nā kapa whanaunga, and from Honeheke. I'm talking Honeheke, not Hongihika. Yeah. Right, Honeheke came after Hongi, came down from the north. So Auckland was too hot a place. You know, they had Patuone live on the North Shore. That was for a reason. That's a political reason why Patuone lived on the North Shore.
The firewall.
That's right. He had his mana. Patuone's mana was greater than that of what he was a Tamate Wakanene's brother, right? So they strategically positioned him on the North Shore so that Honeheke wouldn't come through. Honeheke wasn't going to come through. Not while that chief was sitting there. So that, you know, thwarted what could have been a conquest of Auckland back then. Auckland didn't exist, you know, it didn't exist, but it had grown, turned into a town, and so that looked like it was going to get smashed as well. So you had Hori nā kapa coming from the south with his Ngāti Whanaunga, Hauraki warriors, and then of course the rest is pretty well much history. And of course the other battles that were going on pre 1840, and of course then the land courts developed 1865, and you had the land courts come in and they just carved up the rest of it. George Grey, of course, came out, took a lot of it, confiscated a lot. You know, you had the confiscations in Tauranga, Waikato, you know, and
just previous to that, the government did invite the Maori King at the time to come north and protect Auckland from the north as a backstop. And then when it wasn't a threat anymore, they hoed into Waikato, built highway, the present State Highway 1 is illegally at the time. They passed legislation later to make it okay. And then they headed into Waikato to try and break the King movement as a centre of power for Māoridom. Yeah,
because the King movement's based on the stopping of more Māori land. That's what the whole kaupapa was. We need to stop our people from selling more of their land, or being forced to make sales.
Being forced to sell, that makes more sense.
Being forced to make sales. And the same thing, there was another movement on at the time, interestingly enough. There was two movements going. There's the King movement, and of course, we had the Kotahitanga movement, you see, going almost in parallel. So my great-great-grandfather, Peneamane Tānui, of course, he followed the Kingitanga. So he was a Kingitanga supporter. Puta te whiro mā. So he had, but his cousin, Hamiora Mangakāia, from Huarere, Ngāti Pari, was over at Whakapapa. He was the first premier of the Kotahitanga movement.
Māori Parliament.
Māori Parliament.
And his wife was...
Yeah. His wife, Mary Te Tai, of course, was along with Kate Shepherd, they formed the Māori suffragette movement. You see, they were deep into, talking politics and politicians here. So you had that going on at Whakapapa. So you've got the Mangakahia whānau over there at Whakapapa. They're descendants, the ones now like Wanda and Earl and all of them, and the Mangakahia whānau themselves, Jack, they're descendants of Hamiora Mangakahia and Mary Te Tai. See? So and he was the first premier. Very smart, very intelligent man. Yeah, and of course his wife, Mary Te Tai, from the Hokianga, from Waimirirangi, up there on the northern side of the Hokianga Harbour. A very astute, rangatira in her own right. And, of course, New Zealand being the first to allow the female vote in the world, right? There was Mary Te Tai right there with Kate Shepherd. So, and interesting story, that one too. That one is an interesting story. But Yeah, and so the story of hongi, and that it is, you have to accept the fact that it is what it is. There's no, you know, you can cry over all the spilt milk in the world. It is what it is. There's nothing, there's no, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. History is history, and that's the way it happened.
Yes.
You got a warrior race. That's what you're going to get. No different to samurai, to you know.
And understanding that history, that all those moments, they are empowering.
That's right.
Right. You understand yourself as who you are. You understand the people.
Yeah.
Also, with that understanding too, that you know the things move in tides, it's cyclic. There'll be a time in history where people are rumbling, and then there'll be a time when they're having a rest.
Yeah.
And in Māoridom in particular, your enemy in one generation is the parent of your first cousin in the next generation. And that's, I don't think it was any different in Europe or anywhere else in the world.
Yeah. See, we're two small islands.
Yeah,
You look at us, eh?
Not big populations.
Not big populations.
Not long distances.
I mean, you could run, a good athlete could run in 3 hours to the other coast, you know, across the island. You know, you look at it geographically and you compare it to Australia, and you see Tasmania and you see Australia, and you look over to North America.
Huge. I just can't comprehend the size of it. And here, because we're small islands, jump on a boat. Doesn't take you long to get anywhere if you know the tides.
That's right.
And you can sail.
Yeah.
Joe, Kaumātua, that's the expression.
Yeah.
Right? That's the title. Is it the words to say?
I didn't give myself that title.
Yes. Can you explain?
Other people.
Can you explain?
You
the
don't.
title?
In Māoridom, you don't. It's other people give you that.
Yes.
You know, you never. You don't talk about the old story. The old kumara doesn't talk about its own sweetness. Same thing. You know, you get that. You just, other people put that on you, and I've never sought it out. Never used it. I haven't pulled rank with it yet. Although it's tempting sometimes, but however.
But from someone who is not from the who doesn't have the Aotearoa's background, for me to understand, that's the representation of like this lineage.
Yeah.
Ask me. Ask me.
Brandon, Brandon, go for it.
The reason you'd ask me is because it's embarrassing for people to blow
me to answer that sort of a question.
Brandon, can you please explain
Joe,
it to me?
For a long time, because it is embarrassing. So ask a third person, it makes it all right.
Brandon, can you please explain to me what Kaumātua means?
What's like in Māori language courses and books now, you know, they'll have a section at the start that says, what's your name? My name is... We never ask people that to their faces unless there's been some kind of icebreaker, because it's rude. Because you should know. Because in a little country made of villages where we're all related, you should know who the people are, especially if you're relations. So you always ask someone else and you get a line. And it's the same thing with the Kaumātua thing. It's just... Matua just means a parent. Mātua is the plural form. And kau's just a word that intensifies the meaning of it. So when someone dies... There'll tend to be a Māori or three in a community people will go to when someone dies. It just happens to be him because he knows what to do. And when someone's born and they might need a baptism or help with something, or they're getting spooked or something and they're worried about their baby, they'll go to someone, and it just happens. In this community, happens to be him. In other communities, it just happens to be other people. So the context is Leo wanted the bio. And he said, is it right to use the word rangatira? And I said, yeah, you can, but we don't do that because it's kind of shameful saying, I'm a rangatira. No one says that, because anyone says they're a rangatira, they're not. You don't need to blow your own trumpet. And that's why he gave you those two proverbs. Ina te mahi he rangatira. You know a chief by their deeds.
That's right.
It's in the doing. It's not in the talking. And then the other one I mentioned was, what was the other one I mentioned? Hohonu ka ki, papaku uahua, deep in the throat but shallow in the muscle. You know, some people are good at talking the talk, but they don't walk the walk. So I just know in the time that I was teaching in Whitianga, he's always going, we needed this, or getting this, or we're getting spooked by this, or what should we do about for this? And it's not like he's going around wearing a badge, although I've seen some people wear a badge that says Kaumātua. But it's just... who knows what they're talking about or who's got the networks. And so That's what happens.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm speaking as a third person, so he's not in that embarrassing, kind of humiliating state of having to explain it.
Yeah.
Because you'll do a bad job, because it's embarrassing. But matua or mātua just means parent or parents.
Yeah.
And so kaumātua, in English, they tend to translate it to mean elder, and it does. But in the same way, like our older brothers and sisters in Te Whenua Moemoeā, the Dreamland, Australia, talk about elders. Modern New Zealand people use the word kaumātua for any old person sometimes, but it's not. You can have a tribe with 200 old people, and you might have 4 or 5 kaumātua, because they're the go-tos.
Does he have to be passed on? Is it something that when someone deceases, automatically?
No, it's just in the doing. Who knows what they're talking about, really?
Yeah, it's like I use that word meritocracy, and it's on your merits. You know, it's not about a coming of age either. You know, some of them think, oh, I've turned 50 now, I'm a kaumātua. That's not how it works. That is not how it works, you know. And there's a lot of, you know, you got to earn the right, you know, to even talk about it is
slightly cringe.
Yeah. Cringy sort of stuff.
The reason why I was going
But
there,
it's a great question.
thank you, it's just to put into context, because obviously we are operating in this white world where there's a lot of bureaucracy involved, as you were mentioning before. There's development, and then there's the fishing thing going on there, and then there's the education thing. And so I guess all these people will come respectfully, and maybe also because they have to, I don't know how it works, they will come to you. So this responsibility, it's something that your word is your word, or you come to your people, there's a conversation, like how those that's what I'm curious, when it comes to the people out of the Maori world coming to talk. No,
good question. That is a good question, because in the Māori world, that stands for something. You know, that's somebody you can gravitate to. That's somebody who has, you know, leadership, some form of leadership. Someone who in stressful times maintains a type of control that keeps order. And there are rules, you know, and there are rules, and there are what we call kaua. It's the kaua that keeps you safe. It's the kaua that sets the pai, you know, the speaking rights at the whare. It's the kaua that sets the tone for everything, you know. And so to have that put upon you comes with responsibility. And we don't announce it, we don't talk about it. See, I've got other titles as well, but I don't throw that around. There's also other battles going on, internal battles about people, about your own whānau sometimes, that don't understand that concept, don't understand that Māori worldview, don't understand that, and they seem to think it's a title, or you're entitled to have that title. It you know,
doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that. No, you can't be. You know, just because you turn 50 doesn't make you a kaumātua, not by any stretch of the imagination.
Cousin in used to have a real cool saying, and I like it. It just goes, you can put a pig in the oven, but it don't make it a pavlova.
That's right. That's right. You know,
and that's inappropriate because food's profane and other things and stuff. But the reason I'm saying it's just so apt and descriptive, and it cuts to the gut. It's just do they know what they're talking about? And if they do know what they're talking about, it's because they earned it. It's because they've done their time, and because they know it on their feet and they can apply it. Lots of people know stuff in their head, but they haven't lived it. Like, this is the rules for how we do this stuff. But what are you doing when there's someone coming on with a gun?
Are you going to step out in front of that gun? That's a
kaumātua.
That's a kaumātua.
Yeah.
Are you going to take
and we
the shot?
both know people
hit?
that have done that, that have walked into the middle of gun battles and just gone, hui, or else they'll just walk into, think of the scariest situation you'll think out, and they say, boy, sit down, and they do. And then they'll talk to them, and so they fulfill all those minister, witch doctor, healer. They may have a specialty in a particular direction. Some are really gentle with it. Some are hard as nails.
Yeah, some are tough.
Often you find that all of them are as hard as nails and all of them are as soft as a cloud, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
And usually the thing that it's cost them is blood, sweat and tears, but also they were often shoulder tapped when they were younger and blah, blah, blah.
There's there's a saying in Māoridom that there's they hear you talk about aroha. They think aroha is a placid, nice thing, flowery thing. There's two types of aroha though. There's aroha and then there's aroha. I'm growling you, I'm telling you off, right? I'm giving you a rap over the knuckles, you did it wrong, you blow it, whatever. That's aroha too. It's a lesson in life. It's a lesson in life you shouldn't forget. Okay? E wānanga tau. We're both having a little wānanga now. That's aroha too. And that's what people of today, young ones of today, and that's what I'm confronted with on a monthly basis about what aroha is. They don't realise. They don't realise that I'm giving them aroha, but they see it as being, well, you're a bully, or you're a thing. No, it's not. Like in the old days, and when I was growing up, you got a kick in the behind. If you never forget that, right? But kids these days, we've got to be sensitive.
Another huge difference is when a collective loses its own language, you're cut off from your own world and your own values. You're talking about things second or third hand. You don't live it. People that grow up in a certain way in their own language, you don't talk about aroha because you're doing it. Yeah. When you start talking about it, it's usually because the disconnect has already started to happen, and so people tend to emphasise, well, the meaning of this word is such and such and such and such. Some people talk about it, but some people are just doing it, and it's usually, these ones are talking about it at that table, this one's cooking the feet in the kitchen because they're doing it, or they're repairing the plumbing, or they're cleaning out the shit out of the toilets that are blocked in. That's aroha. Yeah. It's not a flowery and huggy kissy, it's just pragmatic.
Sometimes that's even rangatira too. They'll grab a mop bucket and head off to start cleaning out the wharipaku. And that guy is sending a message out to everybody else. Pull your head in, or get your head out of the clouds and get your feet.
And it may not be doing it consciously as a conscious strategy. It's just who they are, it's how they're wired. Yeah. And often the next generation of rangatira are the ones that just it'll end up going there. And they might not know that they're following an example, but big crab walks sideways, and that's the way a little crab walks sideways.
Do you guys feel like it's getting better knowledge-wise compared to when you were children? I know that you're talking about the struggle of dealing with a generation that it's coming from a completely new perspective, because we don't know how it is to grow up with technology, so it's very hard to deal with them because it's just new for us. But like when it comes to access to information, and especially now the educational system pushing Aotearoa's history in schools, like, do you feel like the understanding at least is getting better, or not? It gets confused, it gets lost. What's
taken
the
out of context? But it's from my observations, it's great that it's emerging through our education system. It's an opportunity, but the best place for your learning, for your understanding, will always be the marae, always be, even if you have a taurehere in some other town or something, you get together, as a family, those sorts of interactions are important as well. But those are the places, and to use it, as Brandon has said, to use it and put it to practice. That's important as well. It'd be like learning Spanish, wouldn't it? Same thing. Or French. The French are very arrogant. And to learn French, the first thing we do as Māori, like you look
we think that's wonderful.
Wonderful, yeah.
It's awesome.
Awesome. It's great. That
be unapologetic.
Aye. But that's the place to start. To start to think about it, to read. There's 1,000 books out there now talking about experiences and that colonization, decolonization. Tiakitanga, and all this sort of thing. There's definitions. All our scholars are out there. There's more and more white papers going in and more academic papers and books being written by our academic Māoris. That knowledge. And even the internet now, you don't need to carry around dictionaries. You can pull it up on your phone. Waiata kupu, words, history. It's all there. And a great medium for us. We're tutus. Māori are tutus, man. They love to try new technologies, and it's like hongihiga and the musket. Same. Curiosity. We gotta have that. Gotta have it, gotta try it, gotta utilize it, see how it can work for us. We strive for that stuff all the time. So to use technology is very, very it's the curiousness in our people. During the war, and our soldiers, 28th Māori Battalion, all that, they went overseas. They went to Greece, they went to Italy, they went to France, they went to, and what's the first thing they used to do? Yeah, the first thing they used to do was try to learn their language. They'd go into that village and they'd do their dance to learn. They'd sit down with the locals and learn their reo, their kōrero, understand their... The second thing, of course, was to look in the farmyard to see what sort of beef and pork and where's your watercress patch, that's the second most important thing. And then we might take orders. But until those first two things, communicating with the tangata whenua, with the people of that land is paramount. It's to get to know them, and so that they start to trust you. And
it's how you scout.
Yeah, that's right, man. Until, you can connect, they can connect with you because they know you're an indigenous from New Zealand, Aotearoa, New Tereni, whatever they're not too sure. A lot of them have never seen a brownie before. They've never seen a Māori. Where the heck is New Zealand? Where's Aotearoa? So we could, the first thing to win their hearts and minds, for a genuine reason, is to learn their culture and learn their reo. By the end of the day, if you haven't got a couple of sentences up your sleeve, mate, it's all that kai that they're not going to tell you about. Because it's about communication, and that's what we do.
What we do with each other, whakawhanaunga.
Yeah, whakawhanaungatanga.
To the land, to the people, and if you're fighting on someone's turf, it's good if they know that you're fighting on their side. Otherwise, they might be cutting your neck when you're asleep.
Yeah.
And you don't want that stuff.
No, it probably helps if they've got attractive sons and daughters.
Yeah, that helps.
All that kind of stuff. Because we got relations that we got left over. Well, they got made there, and then we reconnect them with 2 or 3 generations later.
Yeah. A lot of them came home with Greek names, Italian names.
Auntie Cairo,
Yeah.
Cairo,
Yeah.
Tunisia.
Yeah, Tunisia is a classic name. Beautiful names. And they're
Egypt.
Italian, you know. And they commemorate those times by naming their mokopuna after those villages they stayed in. You know, and that also commemorates the
Casino.
Yeah, casino. And it also commemorates their papa or their grandfather being in that particular place at that time. And the young ones will go back there. They'll go back there and visit the village where their grandfather stayed during the war, during those campaigns. So, you know, I know Ngāti Pro and Ngāpuhi are famous for doing that, you know, for going back there. And the 28th Māori Battalion, of course, it's so important to them. So
Whakapapa.
Yeah,
And also the the game Kiorahi kids do in some of the schools.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a league going since the late 1840s in Europe. Because Māoris taught them the game and they kept on playing it. And most of us didn't know it was a game over here till we say, hello, what's happening over there? And then there was the Renaissance, bringing these old games back. But people have been playing it continually for over 60 or 70 years in Italy and other places in Europe. Because they learned it off the soldiers and they kept it going because it's fun. And because it's competitive for the guys that want to compete, and it's participatory for the ones that just want to participate. It covers all of those needs. And you can, I taught at a school where we started with 30-something kids. The oldest was 17 or 18, the youngest was 5, but everyone could be on the field and play hard out to their own level, and no one was getting trounced or no one was left out. You could, it makes, the point of the game isn't just to win, the point of the game is to be together.
Would you like to say something, Taylor?
Yes. I would like to make a question because we are sharing the links in the communities, and then some people always bring some topics that are not in the conversation. About the Puhiwai Rangi, that's how you say it? Yeah. So last year I was working for someone else, and the whale came to the water and all that repercussion came around. And on my eyes, I was very naive about the culture. So at the beginning, I couldn't understand what was happening, right? And I remember that was just a little bit before Christmas. It was probably October or something like that. And we are doing the magazine. So back in that time, we got in contact with Billy Hunter and some people around, and they actually taught us what was about Brandon and all the culture, what you guys were doing that. And most of the people around, they actually knew that, but they still trying to push it, saying that wasn't the right thing, or that's too old, or they shouldn't be doing that anymore. But then I came to my mind, like, back in that time, we still getting our kids and putting the lap of a strange guy with a white beard, like, you know what I mean? Like, and we think that that's normal, right? Fair enough, it's your culture, it's okay, but why not accept the other culture, Like, I just would like to ask you, Joe, like, what happened, Like, did you got a lot of backlash with what happened? Like,
again, what they don't understand, they fear. We've been doing this. Ngāti Hei's been, most Māori have been using the resource of Tangaroa for hundreds, if not over 1,000 years that we know of in our culture. And don't forget, back before the whalers, before all the whaling industry took off, we hunted whales too. We hunted whales, and we also took the resources from the whales that died on our beaches. When I came back in 1973 and to my grandfather's tangi, the garage, there was a shed used to be out underneath the puriri tree. That was packed with whale bone. And we were sitting on vertebrae for chairs. And there was ribs all up in the ceiling, up in the roof of the shed. And it was nothing. It was just normal. Just normal. It's only the perception and the optics and all the sort of thing people use in today's, what do you do with a whale then? Because you should release it back out into the ocean. Yeah, but it's going to wash ashore somewhere else in someone else's backyard. As long as if it's not in your backyard, bro? Oh, there was some terrible bloody... but it's none of their business as well. Hey, we're Ngāti Hei, this is what we do.
Fair enough. And for me, it was like a slap in the face when I realized that the whale actually treats the kauri trees.
Yeah.
And you guys knew that with passing traditions to traditions, so in the end, you guys were doing what was the best to be done,
Yeah. Oh, they started to say, oh, you're just doing it for money. Money? Come on, Oh, you're going to sell the jawbone? It's worth $100,000. Oh, the whale oil's worth this. And they put a price on it straight away. That's what a Eurocentric view of the world, And you start to price things and put a price on it. And no. And well, what are you going to use it for? None of your bloody business. Hey, you guys use its vomit for perf for Chanel No. 5 and all this little bloody thing and lipsticks and, come on, get a life, And you guys slaughtered all the whales, not us. Your people, your ancestors. So, you created the markets for it. You used it to light up your street lamps and whatever you used it for. And, they just want it both ways all the time. And try and tell this is our culture, man. Why don't they go over there and complain about the Japanese that still eat whale? And that's their business. And the Inuits, they still eat whale. We utilise whale.
Or complain about inhuman factory farming in New Zealand.
It was so many contradictions, and I think again, media coming out and saying that sort of thing was,
bad journalism,
no balance, no real balanced view, no real cultural consideration, no real, it's all very like straw man arguments. They'll throw something at you just to get a reaction and an answer back, but those reactions didn't come, did they? And that answer back didn't come. We put safety, you don't come past this point. We want, we can do this. We can walk through that barrier and dock, and it got on Doc's nerves as well. What they didn't realise is we owned the beach too. You're trespassing, So,
it's like
that's just total bloody ignorance.
Like during the foreshore seabed legislation thing, and people are getting upset. Oh, the Maoris are going to stop us doing that and stop us doing that. If you live in certain parts of New Zealand and you're part of your estate, they'll put a fence up, and if you go over that fence, you'll be arrested.
That's right, trespass.
But they've got no problem walking through our sacred sites and our burial grounds because, we have a right to go to that beach over there. Yeah, but we've been living here for 600 years, and you pricks think you can just walk through here, leave your toilet paper when you go and shit in our cemeteries. It's a battle of aesthetics, and aesthetics change because it's about fashion. A lot of it's to do with status, and it's just be a nosy Parker because my skin is darker. Go to hell.
A lot of them are beating their chests and going, "Oh, well, I've been living here for 5 years. I've been here for 10 years. She's been over here. She's lived here for 15 years. Yeah, right. Okay.
So how long you been here, Joe? 1,000 years.
Yeah, I mean, hello. And there's lots of things we could have done, and it was just trying to sensationalize, trying to create those straw man arguments, trying to force us into a ding dong. That's to them. That's media. That's news. That's what sells. That's what gets the clicks. But we weren't going to go there. We just kept our cool and just carried on with what we do. This is what we do. Wait till the next one shows up. See this whale here? See this whale here? It's sent out its radar signals, right, to its whole pod, its group, its family. They're on their way. It scared the bajingos out of them. They're on their way. So, we let nature take its course. Don't forget that whale arrived here. It was already past. It was gone. You know, this wasn't alive or anything, you know.
Yeah.
So you know, and I got a toad. From Matapawa. I knew that there was going to be some stupidity happening around there. Not only that, what they forget is Matapawa is still in our rohe. I can do anything, we can do anything, well, not anything we like, used to, but not anymore. You know, if we want to tow it around to wharekaho, that's our business. Oh, but Doc shouldn't have paid that. Yeah, but we paid, it's Doc's duty to do so. Doc is our treaty partner. If we instruct them to do something, if it's doable and feasible, they'll do it. You know,
because it's respectful
partnership
under the treaty.
Under the treaty.
There's nothing about extra privileges or ripping people off. And it's done with love because we're related to those fish.
Well, when you have a lot of privilege, that's the first card you throw, right? Yeah. When you see someone doing something, you're like, that's the only thing you know what to say. So that's why so many people use that card. Yeah,
they lash out. They lash out in that way.
You can't do that because I should be doing it first.
Yeah.
Or I should be doing that exclusively.
Yeah. So what you guys were saying connects to what I wanted to ask you, Brandon, that we had another chat before the show, which is increasing that... Whakapapa Maori in the region, supporting that, because the way that I see it is I've been here for 10 years. I've been here for 10 years. And a lot of developments, a lot of people coming from other places of Aotearoa to live here, not necessarily understanding the culture of the place. And it doesn't matter what's going on with the development and how much money those people bring, it will never vanish the real people, the people who have been here for a long time. And these people are going to the schools, these people are going and buying the cheap things at the supermarkets because it's the things that they can afford, and those people are using the skate park because it's the free entertainments they've been after for so long. So then there's this conversation of getting the Maori community to have a stronger voice, to understand, to listen to them, because that's how I felt for a long time. It took me time to understand that it was happening because I just couldn't see. And then by working at the school and getting involved with teachers doing social work, I was like, of course. And I even remember Brandon, when we did a Maori drumming number together, that I invited him to be part of it. I said, Brandon, it's cool how I come to your classroom and the kids relate to me, you know, like it's different from other places. And he's like, you're different. They are seen as different, you know, like when they go around, people look at them differently, and you are different for them. So they relate to you. And then everything started to make more sense. I'm like, oh, cool. The community's here. So what's the work happening around that, and for what you guys represent and what you do? How can we help? What's going on? Big question, big one. Just putting out there so we can start a new conversation there.
You trust?
Yeah, I, you know, Whitianga, if you look at the demograph here, it weren't in back. I'm talking 50, 60 years ago. Recently, Ngāti Hei there weren't very many Ngāti Hei. There's probably one family here, really. The children of Ngāwhira and Charles Philip Davis, and of course there was Peneamone and Ngāwhira's parents, Peneamone and Rahira, and they had, I think, 10 children. So, and they're spread far in between Manaia here and Tairua, you know, and so you had, there wasn't many, and so you had the first land deals and all that happening here, and also in Whitianga. You had, so what, you know, so we were in terms of numbers, we never recuperated really from the Ngāpuhi slaughters of 1812, 13, 14, you know. It's been a struggle to get our numbers back up, and for the Crown during the settlements, it had always been a numbers game, you know, and we paid a price for that too in today's context, in the context of treaty settlements. And we paid a price for not leaving our beloved homelands. There was around the time of Hongi, when he arrived, there was most of the tribes of Hauraki had left. So the only ones who stayed behind, and this is you'll find this evidenced in the Land Court minute books, right? It's written that 2 tribes that stayed behind were Ngāti Hako and Ngāti Hei. And we stayed and fought on, and we fought, and we paid the price for that. And we wound up the descendants of, I think it was 25 survivors that lived in Matapawa. This is why the people of Matapawa don't understand the place where they live. It's such a sacred place. How it was lost, we do not know. You know, Matapawa.
Do you mean the legalities behind that?
Yeah. We've got a block of land that's I call it the floating piece of land. Lere whenua, that is not accounted for, and that's out there. Matapawa Puhiwai, hence the name Puhiwairangi. Taylor, for the name of the whale, and all around Fofo, all around that area. And so you had a small population of Ngāti Hei, and I've just explained to you the reasons why. And of course, we once had 23 hapū, and they're documented in our claims as well. That went right down into Omanaya, down to we call it Wharekawa. Down into past Pawanui, and you're going down towards Whangamata, all the way up to Whakapapa and beyond. We had whenua beyond that as well, and then into the hinterland, into the and over on the plains, and you get bits and pieces everywhere. Anyway, so that explains our small population. And then when the Cody Timber Mill started up, you know, you had, it's written in Peneama's diaries, it says every tribe, all the tribes were here working or looking for work. Don't forget, we were now well embedded into the industrial age, the British industrial age. We went from fighting each other and being warriors to being dependents. You know, and that meant now flour, sugar, butter, milk, you know, all those things they're telling us not to eat today. And we were dependent on butcher shops and stuff like this, our grandfathers. You know, and so you had this dependency. The only commodity we had was our land. So that was soon quickly picked off, and they picked off the owners. There's more to Ngāti Hei. There's more Ngāti Hei were taken by Hongi North, and probably by other tribes, you know, coming in and taking our women and our children. So they're all over the place, really. And I'd love to do a DNA and find out where they all are. The problem is we're all related anyway. So it's the same bloody DNA through all of us.
Ngāti Hei, samurai.
Oh, okay. You know, right into, you know, Waitaha, right down to the South Island, right up to the tip of the north. I don't know. You'll find it's so that's probably not worth doing. But and so you know, and you look at this town. You know, you come into Whitianga. Apart from what James did last year with the birds, the carvings in Taylor's Mistake. What else is there? What do you see culturally? I see nothing. I don't see any, what do? They paint a picture of the Endeavour with a Joseph Banks and da-da-da-da-da, and the logs getting carted out on the ships and up in the bush, and where did I notice it the other day? Anyway, we were completely left out of our kōrero. Even today, even in this modern day, in the narratives, you see them. In the paper from Teams, they talked about the beginnings of the beginnings of the populace here on the Coromandel Peninsula, and they refer. Not whether they were afraid to go there and talk about it, or they just didn't know their bloody history. I don't know. There wasn't a mention of it anyway. And so our mahi. So my mahi. So having noticed this, and we get a lot of people now coming through, working at the mussel factory or working in with the developers on machines, machine operators. Forestry, a little bit of that going on, and maybe on the fishing boats and in our fishing industry, whatever. And so you've got a lot of Māori coming through, and a lot of them stayed, on the place, so they stay. And kei te paitera, that's all right, that's just the way it is these days. And so And they have tangi. We have tangi here too in Whitianga. The most tragic thing I ever see is when they have tangi at their house, and they got the tūpapaku lying in state in the lounge, and some cook outside, some can't. The kitchen's just a curtain away. That's not us. That's not our culture, honestly. And for some reason they can't go home or back to their own marae or whatever. Or the people don't come and get them or whatever, for whatever reason. And and there's no real place, even for our Pākehā people here. There's no real place where we can gravitate to that speaks that fills the manakitanga of Māori. There's no marae. Hey, there is no marae. And if I was I'd find that peculiar if I was Māori coming from outside, coming to a town like this and going, whoa, it's just a contrast, And for me, being tangata whenua, being Ngāti Hei, and seeing that is a tragedy. It's a tragedy, and why has this come about? I can give you a reason. I can give you a dozen reasons, but I don't want to be putting my own lot down too much. They can't be held. Well, I can say this: they can't be held accountable for the sins of their fathers. But then again, they can't get away with it either. Where is the manakitanga? Where is the focal point for our people here in Whitianga? And so, where is the awhi? Where is the tautoko? I've had tangi at home that aren't related to us at all, but out of just sheer, aroha. And sheer manakitanga and that. And we've known these people for years, and they come and helped us, helped me and Te Awhi on the marae, whether it's in the kitchen or sitting on the pai or, and I know who they are, and they're the ones I call first, believe it or not, because I know I'll get some tautoko, I know I'll get some right kind of help, and the help that I know in our Māori world is quite natural to us. And And so it's always been on the back of my mind, there needed to be a community marae. There needed to be a community one, a ngā haue whā, which means people from the four winds, including our Pākehā people, right? I've been approached by a few Pākehā people, Joe, I want a Māori tangi when I go. You know, they're elderly. I want a Māori style. I love the way you guys, you know, talk and grieve and you know, allow.
Is it accepted? Is it fine to do that?
Yeah.
Do it all the time. Have since they got off the boat.
Yeah. We offing them. You know, not every time they can harry. You know, we've got to. It's got to be a relationship, and we have those relationships, and you know, and even if they were, you know, in terms of tangi, it's really important to us to be able to awhina, and I might take that person back to their marae. Say they have a marae hokianga, or they have a marae like Huria was the last tauranga there, you know, with Ngāti Ranginui. We take that person back to their marae, or with Waikato, for instance, you know, even though he's whānau up in there, to his girl, where his girl's been interned there. So to take him back there, that's what the family wanted, kei te pai tērā, you know. So for me, it's my duty, one of my duties is to accompany that family back to that marae. Right, even though they're not Maori related to us. Well, like I say, we are all related, but in this immediate sense, to awhin in total and lessen the burden for them. It takes the it relieves the stress and the grievance and the grief and the, you know, for them to know that they have someone with
Support.
them from home, you know, from here.
And for us,
in
the way we're raised in a value system, that's just being a decent human being.
Yeah, it's what you do, you know.
Nā te mahi he rangatira.
Yeah, you know, I don't, you know, if, you know, I'm not some of them will just only grieve and only do things just because it's their immediate family. And then, I'm more te, you know, we have a saying, more te kato for everybody. I have a sense of responsibility in my rohe for those that come into my rohe, and provided that you know,
there's a relationship
there.
And Waikato was
I'll look after you.
The family or workers.
Yeah, the whole family
workers
will come and work in our wharekai, you know. And so they become part of our family. Well, that's why we, like all the people that come to as part of that kaupapa, you know, Billy and Pari and everyone else, you know, you got the punareo and with Maddie and you know, we call it te whānau whitianga. You know, that's our name we've sort of called ourselves, whānau whitianga. And I'm very proud of that name, and I'm very proud of those people.
Well,
proud of
when anything happens, they're in the back.
Yeah.
They're there straight away.
They know. You know, there's no dumb questions.
Yeah.
It's just automatic. They're marae people back in their home, back at there where they come. They're marae people. They know, they get it. They understand. You know, some people like to roll out the red carpet and you've got to come and ask me before I'll come to the marae. I hate that. You're either an automatic pilot, mate, get your backside up here, or just, you know, yeah.
What is involved in get this to become a viable group where funds can come, where supports can come to make these things big?
Oh, yeah, well, media will be, comms, media will play a big role in that, you know, play a big role. So, you know, when we start to, at the moment, we've just mooted the idea of sitting around talking about it. We're looking at different ways we might be able to raise money to build this thing. We're talking with council at the moment. where a suitable piece of whenua will be utilised, have multiple purposes. We don't even know if it'll be carved. It might be just the building itself representing, but it's something. A little whare nui whare kai in the ablution block. It's something that our people, or those who come in to live in Whitianga and enjoy Whitianga, and we want it to be a healing place. There's been a lot of death here in the past. There's been a lot of death. But it's also the yin and the yang of that, of course, is the life and encouragement and bringing those young ones in to make them feel like they're part of something. They belong to something. They can, I'd like to think that we wouldn't even have to lock it up. It will be protected by everybody. So I know that's these days that's kind of hard to do, but we could aspire to think something like that. It tells you something about it, what we name it and what we, it and the role that it will play. If you look at Dame Atarangi Kahu has done for the airport. She's built a marae there at the airport. It's part of the when tūpapaku when the dead arrive from overseas, and there needs to be some sort of a place they can
receive them.
Yeah, receive them. She's built, she's allowed for a marae to be built at the airport. Now that's manakitanga. That's aroha. That's Tainui's Tainui's manakitanga to the people. So that's really for Māori that's a real that's a mana a whakamana for Tainui waka. So and I'd like to think that we could do the same for our people here in whānau Whitianga. And of course the role of media, and the role of just communication and talking enough, and having a place to. We could do anything there, from art to media to kapahaka, waiata, and reo, and all these things can happen on this place. At this place, we could even, for instance, it'll be the piece of whenua we're looking at. Is down a Moi way, So we're looking at a piece now, and we've already mooted it with council, and now we need to lobby for it and all this sort of thing. Go through the stages of looking at probably a lease or something like that off council, and forming the entity that'll represent it legally, a legal entity. Who will be on that entity? Whose koa is it going to be? Which rules? What are we going to? What's the all these things that go to make a marae? Who's going to sit on the pai? Who's going to there'll be the inaugural. There'll be and then we just develop and grow from there, and the momentum behind that. A lot of our tradies want to come in and help. They want to lend their time.
It's the beautiful thing with that villagey marae / 1950s New Zealand type of thinking and doing stuff. People don't want to go to a meeting and hear blah blah blah. They just want to hear, can you do this? And then they just want to go and then do it. People want a job. And there's something as enriching as this. I can't see any negatives in it. And I'm a first generation migrant Māori child. I grew up in Invercargill, but so many precedents of how these types of marae have been integral to not just building communities, but maintaining existing communities that were suffering from the closure of industries and things like that. All sorts of stuff, and it just creates a platform for cool stuff to happen. Yeah,
and that's a good point. All this COVID and the latest, with the flooding and the erosion and all this, it's made lives a lot tougher. It's the cost of food, the cost of building materials, the cost of everything has gone up 18-20%. So, but to have something positive sitting there, I think helps. It's good for the psyche, good for the for your. You don't have to be Māori. You can be Ngāpuhi, as I say. You can be from all over, and it's. I wouldn't go as far as tourism. I would. It's not for that purpose. When you start to delve into tourism, I don't know. It's a discussion that entity needs to have.
Yes.
Well, there's other things that need to happen first.
Yeah. And
to maintain cultural integrity, but also to make sure that it's serving the people it was originally designed for. Becoming what do you call
an economic unit?
No, in Hawaii, what do you call the Polynesian Centre? You don't want a tourist village experience, and it's not dissing that. There's a place for that.
There's a place for it.
This ain't the place.
No.
It has to fit the purpose first.
The
right?
people.
And the thing with if you have that marae complex type culture developing, the building is one thing, but the people is the building and the building's the people. So if you don't have succession in place, that's one thing. If you don't have the people that can work the back, that know their jobs at the front, do all the other stuff, then, the things have to happen in tandem if they're not already in existence. And I just guess the group that you described before, the whānau whitianga, that is the people part of the whare.
Yeah, that's the people.
And that can work with the mana whenua, and that can work with whatever comes after.
Yeah. Yeah, none of the local politics needs to get involved, and I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't want it that way,
The best training ground is a marae because it's where you learn to serve others first.
Yeah, that's right too, and that's a good point. Thank you for that, Brandon.
And that's the main criteria for who's the chief, who's the kaumātua. They're the ones that have done all of those jobs.
And
a lot of young ones, they've got that rarefied view of, this chief does this thing and that thing. No, that Uncle so-and-so's out there because no one cleaned the toilet better than he did. Whenever we hear there's a tangi, he's the one that kills the cow, hands it, butchers it, everything from there to there.
Yeah, organises the divers to go out and get the kai, all this sort of thing. There's all that that has to happen to try and relieve the grievances. And might be weddings there, there might be birthdays, and there's all that too that goes on. So not just tangi, but
that phrase that came up earlier in the discussion, aroha ki te tangata. It's out of the Bible, but we were saying the same thing before we came across the Bible. It just means aroha to people, or just goodwill to anybody. And that was epitomised in 2019 at the Tuia festival. We were
it was the greatest thing ever, to have all those 9 schools there. And
it felt good. Yeah. I didn't hear any negative feedback about anything.
Nah. And it's great to see all the races, different races there.
Age groups.
Any
demographic
races,
you name it was there.
It was there. And they were just so proud. And I was proud of them. They were proud of themselves. They actually made history. That's part of a historical event. That's very real. This isn't a rehearsal. This isn't, this isn't the Pepsi, man. It's the Coca-Cola. This is no ad, by the way.
If they want to sponsor us,
we're looking for sponsorship, but I'm sure
that would help with the marae.
Yeah, it would help. It would help.
What's this mean? It's M for Māori.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So they were part of a major event.
And for me too, it was the week leading up, because I'm going over the whanaka. I was like, any jobs need to be done. I'm thinking, who's that pākehā carrying the so-and-so, carrying Zizi's tools down to the thing? Whatever. I thought, this is cool. And our friend Thomas, the folk legend Thomas, said, I was walking along the beach one day and I saw Joe out there, and I thought, he shouldn't be doing that by himself. So he tracked us over. And
good man.
The community's doing stuff. It's not talking about it.
Yeah.
And I feel like the great and biggest step is the manifestation that is already happening. right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is going to happen. It's just the ways that this is going to happen.
Well, it's the next big public holiday, isn't it?
And they've been trying to do a similar thing in Whangamata
Yeah.
for between 20 and 30 years. And the excuse that's given is usually, there's too many iwi groups, blah, blah. There's only one here, so it should be really easy.
Yeah.
Scott Simpson. So I reckon in about 3 years, maybe
Sup,
2. Badonk.
Come on, Scott.
Come on, Scott.
Particularly if we're in a country led by a national-led government, that would be a great way to.
There you go. We go from the M to the N. Joe, thank you so much, both of you, for sharing this idea, first of all, of something that is coming to Whitianga. For Taylor and I, for the work that we do and we feel part of the community. So for us, it's pure common sense to understand Maori culture and to be involved at the level that we can, that is still respectful. You know, like we care a lot about that. We don't want to go in areas that is not up to us, but what it is and what is respectful of doing it, like you guys can count with us 100%. So thank you for sharing your story. Thank you so much. And what a cool corredo. Thank you so much. Hope to have you both back.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Thanks,
Once we get that Coca-Cola thing sorted out.
Yeah, we can have blue ginger and Coca-Cola.
Could be Pepsi. Could be Pepsi.
Could be an independent industry run by Ngāti Hei.
Hey, yeah.
Koke kora.
Thank you so much, Joe.
No, I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. The meal was fantastic, you know, and sitting here with my friend Whananga Brandon, my Ngāti Pukenga, Ngāti Hei, Whanganui-A-Hei Whananga here. It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. I'm just absolutely, you know, I'm a better person for this guy, and you know, and I hope that we can do some more of this. I'm enjoying it. This is my first podcast ever, so you know, it's not my first rodeo now. It's
Joe introduced me to podcasts. I didn't know what a podcast was.
well,
There you go.
yeah,
Next you're in one. You're part of one.
you're in one. No, I find this very. Yeah, I find this. I feel very relaxed. You know, to be able to share some thoughts. You know, that politically you wouldn't normally. You just sort of keep that to yourself. But I think it's times now to sort of almost come out of the closet and you know, share some of our thoughts and come what may. You know, whether the reactions are this, that, and the other. The thing is, you said it. You know, you've said it.
It's not someone else's words.
No. Yeah, and I'm sitting in front of some, including you, Taylor, the technical guy, the man. Sitting here in front of some very good people that the questions are wide and broad, and there's so much more to talk about. There's so much more to share, and for the community of whānau Whitianga and our community here, Whitianga. Yes, it's a little. I view it as a little country, you know, and I'm very precious about it. And of course, we're linked with Pawanui and Tairua and Whakapapa and all the other towns too. And I'm very, very proud of the fact that we can do some good work. Lots more good work to happen. You know, our Ngāti Hei is about to have its third reading, and it's about to settle its
settlement.
Yeah, our settlement, and I'm excited by that. You know, how we can now make a contribution to society rather than being a, what would you call it? I always call it being a hood ornament on a car. You know, and just I'd like, you know, on our, like I keep saying, on our own merits and being able to be part of society that is just responsible for its roi. as it always has been in the past. In the modern context now, we have all these, with all this technology around us. Surely we can make something out of this, make a better world for our mokopuna, and to be able to it's not just us now. Like I say, we're in the worldwide. First it was a worldwide economy, now it's the World Wide Web, it's the worldwide of everything. People are learning more and more now. Even Joe Rogan has mentioned New Zealand on several occasions. Yeah. And I go, wow, he knows.
He knows, man.
He knows, I think
he's done all right for an obscure stand-up comedian.
He has, and he's opened the world up to this whole new medium in terms of so much so that mainstream television is suffering as a result. Yeah. The younger generations would rather see a realistic side rather than the old 50, 60 corporate.
Anyway. Yeah, it's healthy.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that when Joe Rogan is here, I'll call you to be the co-host.
Yeah.
I'll do the food and the dishes.
Yeah. Oh well, I hope he maybe even spare your show, your podcast 5 minutes. You never know, man.
You never know, man.
Yeah, he shows up in some peculiar places. He loves hunting. Yeah, and he loves. Yeah, he's mad on hunting and stuff. Yeah, elk and.
Betting buddy.
Yeah.
Sheila.
Yeah.
There you go.
We got the MMA.
We got everything here.
Thing going. Yeah. Of course, we got everything.
We got everything here. So,
I think it's fantastic that the iwi are getting the recognition.
Yeah.
That they need to have and the voice deserve to have, and pretty good for a little iwi that a lot of people hadn't heard about until your stuff had gone through.
Yeah. Well, I haven't even tickled. I haven't even tickled the belly of the tuna yet, brother. Hey.
There will be part 2.
There's more.
There will be part 3.
But wait, there's more. But I'll do what I can. We have, there's an old saying, and I use it on the marae, but ko te wā, ko te whai tātou te parawenga. That means, time hunts and we're all its victims, so don't waste it. Get out there, get amongst it, make a change, do something good, and in small ways, it doesn't have to be a big thing. And as long as you can, read that book to your child, or something like that, it's not difficult to do something good.
It's a good kōrero.
A beautiful
merch
kōrero.
T-shirt.
A merch T-shirt, you reckon?
Target species.
Yeah.
Time hunts all.
Yeah. Ko te wā, ko te. Yeah. I used to have an uncle. He was a military guy. He was out of Malaya, and he was a hard man. Hard man. Beautiful man. He was one of my favourite uncles. He was, when I say, earning someone's respect is hard. It was, no one gets his respect, and I'd like to say I earned it with him. And he used to say to me when I was a kid, he used to pull me up before I went to bed. We had to churn butter and that before we went to bed. For ready for the next day. We had these little butter churns. You put the cream in it, churn away there, and then we had to do this, do that. Then we went for our bath. Then we went to bed because there was cows to go and get up in the top paddock to take down to the cow shed in the morning. All this sort of thing. And I miss those days. I do. I miss, And I was a townie, of course. I lived in town, but I went out on school holidays. I went out to my uncle and auntie's farm. And he used to say to me, he'd be always doing something. And he used to say to me, boy, I admit to it. And I wouldn't look at him. I was scared of him. What day is it? And I'd have to say, and I didn't understand why I had to say it. I didn't understand. And he said, well, what day is it? But I had to say this. He said, I'd say to him, I'd reply to him, I'd say, oh, it's another day closer to the hole in the ground. Oh, that's heavy. That's heavy. It's another day closer to the hole in the ground. This is every evening, right? And every time I went out, my school holidays went out there, that's what he'd make me say. And then he'd say, and don't you forget that. And you do something good in your life. You try and do the best you can. You try and be the best you can be, right? And don't waste it. And so, and I always took that to heart. And later on, I didn't understand what it actually meant when I was that young. Later on in life, I definitely saw the wisdom in what he was saying. Although it was hard, and he was a hard man. It was hard. It's the same as saying, ko te wā, ko te whai tātou te parawinga. Well, time hunts and we are its victims. We have one lifetime. The clock's running, people. So you try and do the best you can. Like you've done. Look what you've done here. It's amazing. It's amazing. You're certainly not wasting your time.
Amen.
No. Both you and Taylor, and to see this wonderful facility here, and to be able to share our thoughts at this time. So I finished at that.
Kia ora.
Thank you, Joe. And we made that, and when we started that, we saw that as something for the community, as is the magazine as well. So we know we did that, but we did that as giving back to the community. So all of these we see as part of Whitiaga, not actually ours.
Yeah, because we're not forever. We won't be here forever.
That's right.
But the legacy is something that we start, and then people embrace it. There's no point in being ours. It's just out there.
Yeah. Great journeys start with a single step,
That's right.
So if we can all take a single step towards that goal, that kaupapa that's there somewhere. It's very hard to read the future. And I think we're all in, I just hope we can inspire somebody or young ones or to reach out to people and a little bit more. And share the love, share the love, be, and hey, you can't go wrong. You just can't go wrong. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Brando, my man. What a pleasure. Wrap it up, Brandon. Do it for us, my friends. Just before you do that, we're back on Thursday, 7 p.m. every Tuesday and Thursday live. We're going to have the pleasure to have Tyler Thompson from Te Korowai. We're going to learn we're going to learn more about Maori health and health in general. So I'll see you guys on Thursday. Take us away, my friend.
Ia ai o i runga, ia ai o i raro, ia ai o roto, ia ai o amu. Kia tau te ai o te rangi Māori o te runga rawa ki rungi a tātou katoa. Tuturo whiti whakamaua kia tina.
Tina.
Tai
kia. Kia ora, kuia, ma. Ai, Māori.